Peace. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about what happened in D.C. with Representative Jamal Bowman, as the House Republicans officially have censured him for pulling that fire alarm a couple of months ago. We're going to get into that. Also, let's talk about the rise of threats to public officials and the impact that it has on democracy. A new CNN investigation has opened up the conversation once again about the political violence that we are embarking upon in this country because of our partisanship. We're going to have that discussion later on, folks. Can we talk a little bit about philanthropy, implicit bias, and black media? I'm going to be checking in with the founder and editor of Afro LA News, Miss Dana Amihir, and talk to us about all of these dynamics, especially in the landscape of black media, and there's so much more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Peace, y'all. Happy Thursday and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. We got a lot of good discussions for you. Check it out, folks. We are streaming on a number of dope platforms that you can find this show and so many other the great programming that we have to offer from Black Star Network. But we're certainly on our home website at blackstarnetwork.com. Go down to our home website and check us out as we are streaming live right there on blackstarnetwork.com. You can download the app for free. Follow us on social media. But here's the important part, folks. Your financial donation makes a world of difference for us. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, we're streaming live on Amazon News on your Fire TV, on Amazon Prime Video. You can find us there on your Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, the news. And we're also on Freevee, where you can find us on that great network. You can find us on Now under News and Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Search for Black Star Network or find us on Live TV, News and Opinion. All right, big shout out to my online culture crew. That's you, folks. That's you. Yeah, that's you. It's been streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. We're also streaming on Facebook under Roland Martin and Black Star Network. But if you're on Roland Martin's YouTube page, you can join us in the chat where it's always popping off, folks, as part of the online culture crew. And big shout out to the crew. Big shout out. I see you, Pastor Damon Blissett. Good afternoon. He says, hey, kings and queens. Hey, Pastor Damon. Thank you so much, as always. Anastasia, my sister, thank you so much for checking in. Anastasia, I get your messages. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate y'all keeping me up to date on everything. Lori Parks, I see you. Thank you for checking in. My sister Tiana, I see you. Who else we got in here? Gene Smith. Good afternoon, brother Farajii, producer, special guest in the culture family. Good afternoon, Gene. Thank you so much for joining us. Ming Lee, Natasha Surge. Ming, thank you for checking in once again. ABX girl. Hey, ABX girl. Good connecting with you. Janelle, I see you. Tiana, I see y'all, man. Thank y'all so much for joining us in the chat as folks are still coming into the conversation. Let's jump right into it. We're talking first about what's happened out of the House of Republicans, the Republicans, a House of Representatives, excuse me, as the Republicans have moved forward in censuring one of the Democrats' very own, and even so, a few Democrats were actually on this vote too, to censure Representative Jamal Bowman for pulling the fire alarm. Now, joining me for this conversation is my brother and friend and activist. He's a DEI specialist, my brother Sinedu Okorafor. Brother Sinedu, good afternoon and happy Thursday, bro. How are you feeling?
Good afternoon. I'm feeling pretty good. Can't complain.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about this. This was a strange situation, but I think I got more clarity now, brother Sinedu, because Representative Bowman kind of put some more details out there. But first, it's the fact that he was actually censured, and this is one step down from being expelled. That's George Santos. That's what happened to him. He's never coming back. But this is a censure. But this was, take a look at this, folks. This is the latest from NBC News around this situation. 214 to 191 vote was largely along party lines with Democratic Representatives Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, Johanna Hayes of Connecticut, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington joining all other Republicans in voting yes. Bowman admitted to pulling the alarm in the Cannon House office building in September as Republican lawmakers sought to vote on the spending measure. He said in a statement after the incident that he accidentally activated the alarm after he came across a door that was typically open for votes but would not open that day. What do you make of this, Sinead? What do you think? Was this a little bit too harsh of a punishment? I mean, censuring a person for pulling the fire alarm. I don't know. What's your take on it, bro?
I mean, I don't think it's too hard of a punishment. Also, when you look at it, like, we know, like with protocols, it's like when people call 911, there is money involved in that. You pull that fire alarm, you are alerting the system, of EMS and EMT to come or whatever. And there are, costs, if I'm not mistaken, associated to stuff like that. So I think it is a good punishment for him. And also and I think we talked about this when it happened. It was very careless of him to do as an adult. You're expected to move differently. That wasn't one of his smartest things. But what I hope is with this censuring, let that be the punishment for the crime, and let's move on. Let's not continue to belabor this point long after this. Y'all voted, he censured, and hopefully he learns his lesson and we go from there.
Sharon Marie, you checked in. Good afternoon, Sharon. You said the video tells all. I do remember seeing that video. I'm sure you do too, Sinead. He kind of like walked around and it looked like, I don't know if it, man, I read up on body language, but I can't tell for sure if it was like intentional. But now, at first, when it first happened, I was like, why the hell did he pull the fire alarm? But now that he put out this statement saying, hey, I pulled the fire alarm in the midst of a voting session, it's like, okay, that might have been some level of your little act of resistance against the Republicans in some shape or form. But yeah, the video says it all. Pastor Damon, you said it too. The video says it all. I'm just saying. Laura, you checked in and you said, look, I'm not surprised at all by this. You shouldn't either. Two Democratic House representatives that are censored going to be upset after the election on Capitol Hill on the Republican side. So this is more of a situation, Sinead, where it's like tit for tat, right? Like
Right.
you could be petty, I could be petty, that type of thing. But here's the sad part about it. Again, when we see these type of punishments being imposed on public officials, they aren't the ones who really suffer. It's the voters. It's the constituents. Those are the ones who truly suffer from that. And if your representative is being censured as a result of something like this, whether he did it intentionally or unintentionally, you're not going to have a good vibe, a good feeling about that representative, nor about the institution of democracy. What's your
Agreed.
take, bro? Yeah.
Well, agreed. I think if you look at the state of our politics today, it's all a joke. It's all laughable. You can barely take anything seriously at this state on all sides, because it's like you just said, it's the voters. We sent you all there to represent us, to not pull fire alarms. We don't get to pull fire alarms in our everyday lives, and we don't expect you to be doing the same thing for whatever reason. And yes, I even saw it as an act of resistance, and that's why I believe, like anything, you do the crime, you do the time. But it's just on a bigger scale when you look at what's going on in the world, and more importantly, what's going on in our country. Like, we have bigger issues we need to be solving. Our economy seems to be lopsided. Unemployment numbers were up this month. Flint still doesn't have clean water. That's what I would like to see our lawmakers tackling: actual life-changing issues, and not a fire alarm so that we can all go to recess.
I like that. Corinna, you got this. You said the same sentiment as our great culture crew member Corinna said. Corinna, Denise, good afternoon, Corinna. You said, who cares? just pales in comparison to all the other destructive behavior on Capitol Hill and all of the other scandals. I agree. I agree. It's unfortunate because it's a stain on his public service record that he was censured by the House of Representatives. But in the big scheme of things, in 2023 going into 2024 political landscape, oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. Now, the only thing, to your point, though, Sinead, is that when you do pull stuff like this, and I'm not trying to dismiss this because we don't want anybody to get the wrong impression, that you can go into a federal building and start doing some wild stuff, like pulling fire alarms, especially at a time in a period in this country where there is a heightened sense of security or insecurity and uncertainty about what's going on around you. So I don't want to downplay that part. That, when you pull a fire alarm at the Capitol, people are still people have PTSD from what they saw from January the 6th. Now, we've seen it one way. Can you imagine being in the Capitol that day and that jumped off? So I'm not going to downplay it. I'm not going to say, it's not that important because it's still an issue of safety and security. But it's just more of it shouldn't be emphasized, overemphasized. Like you said, it's already been dealt with, it's been punished. And so I hope that water will just go right under the bridge and get back to doing the people's business of serving the American people. Let me see here. Monkey Confessions, you say pulling a fire alarm is a misdemeanor or a felony. He pulled a sign down. Mm. And Janelle, my sister, you said, thank you so much, Monkey Confessions, and good afternoon to you. And Janelle, you said the GOP never pays the price for their deliberate acts. The government shutdown deadline is less than 30 days away. So like you said, Sinead, like Janelle, she's like, hey, y'all not paying the consequences of that. And we got some very real problems. So let me just tell you, and this is crazy. When we're talking about the shutdown, then we got to take a quick pause. When we talk about the shutdown, that's a technical part of governance. That is not like a public thing. You know what I'm saying, Sinead? When people talk about shutdown, they like, oh, the government doesn't shut down. This is just a technical part of governance in terms of making sure that the money is there, making sure that the government can continue to operate at the capacity that it's doing, and all of those things. That's behind the scenes stuff. Over the past few years, we started to see this being used as a bargaining chip, over politicizing something that should be technically just dealt with behind closed doors. But it's been brought to the light to the American people. And so even that in itself, it's like, this is, like you said, it's so petty. Stuff is getting so political, over political, everything's politicized, and it gets to be so petty. Any words on that, bro?
Yeah, like and it's like, and now it brings us into a tit for tat. Well, the Democrats didn't, well, the Republican. Y'all, I think the state of our governance in this country is starting to become shameful, where it's like the Senate, the House, even sometimes the presidency, as we saw in the last administration, it becomes laughable. And, we're on the world stage. There are bigger, super geopolitical issues that we got to focus on. I think this precedence, if you ask me, that is why a George Santos or a Marjorie Taylor Greene can exist in our Congress, is because our Congress is seen as a joke. Like, you can just come in there and do whatever you want. You can hold up, you can shut the government down. No one cares. It's nothing is. I think the nobleness that used to come with these positions are now they're faltering, and it's again a big stain on this experiment that we call democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brother Damon, you said I agree the punishment is stupid, but he did pull the fire alarm for a non-emergency reason. I was on the emergency response team when I was in the office. You can't do that. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that. We teach children not to pull the fire alarm for non-emergency reasons. Do we got to teach adults that now too? Especially in a government building? Come on. You can't do it like that, Mr. Bowman. No, you can't turn that off. Absolutely. All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's shift gears now. Speaking of what is a real threat to democracy, CNN has started an investigation looking at real threats against public officials, and it is a fascinating investigation because they're finding there is a huge uptick, a huge surge of threats against public officials from 2022 to 2023, more so than in any other time period. And guess what, folks? Political scientists, social scientists are very concerned that we would never think to see that in this day and time that we would be living in America where political violence will become almost rampant as there are in other countries. We often talk about that. But tonight, or today rather, we're going to talk a little bit about this. It's a small part of a major, major conversation that we're going to have on the other side. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. I am joined by my brother and friend, Brother Sinedu Wakwafor, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, an activist, and an advocate, human rights advocate. And we're going to be switching gears, not necessarily talking about fire alarms, which could serve as a threat, could be a very real serious situation. But so let's talk about the climate right now that we're currently in, based upon the number of threats that people are leveling against public officials. Now, Sinedu, this is quite fascinating. When I came across this piece, CNN is actually doing an investigation. They're doing a special series or special story around this issue of of threats. And folks, I will have to say, when you start to read, what was revealed, the threats, the number of threats, what the FBI have been, grappling with, and what folks are actually saying to public officials, this is quite concerning. Because, Brother Sinead, one of the things that we're seeing in this country is that it can be the smallest thing, right, that can be said that can boom, that can trigger someone, and pardon the pun, but trigger someone in the sense of wanting to take their views to violence. So this is why I wanted to have at this part of the conversation, because CNN is doing this and it's talking about how there has been this surge in threats to public officials they say could disrupt American democracy. American democracy. Let me share with y'all what CNN was shared, or what the information they gathered based upon. Now they looked at a couple of different things. They looked at news clippings. They looked at FBI records. They looked at a host of different sources to kind of aggregate, where we are with this threat situation. Let's put up quote one, please, Lise, because I want to show y'all. Take a look at this, y'all. CNN reviewed more than 500 federally prosecuted threats. And I never knew threats could be considered federally prosecuted. 500 federally prosecuted threats. This is what they found. At least 41% of all the cases across the decade were politically motivated. That's high. Nearly 95% of people prosecuted for making threats to public officials are male. The median age is 37. Politically motivated threats to public officials increased 178% during Trump's presidency. Threats related to hot political topics like abortion or police brutality also skyrocketed during the Trump years, increasing by more than 300% from Obama's second term. And here's the final one. As the party in power, 16 Democrats received threats during Obama's second term. This increased 169%, with 43 GOP lawmakers threatened under Trump. So we're looking at a very serious situation. This is not like 100%, 50%. This is damn near 200, 300% increase in what we're seeing. What does that say right now to you, Brother Sinead, about the state of our political affair and the landscape that we're in? And more importantly, the mindset of the American people.
I think it says a couple of things. I think, for one, what it's saying to me is the humanization of folks in power. I think for far too long, people in power have been seen as untouchable, like they are high from reproach. And I think these threats are kind of scary, but it's also a reminder that, like, when you're going in there and you're legislating or doing whatever, like, you are a person. You can be held accountable. Now, that is one way of looking at it, but also it says something about the mental state of our country. I think America has been through, I will keep saying this, like, these are better angles of trying days. I think America has been through worse when you think about the early 1900s, the consistent wars, the laws against Black people, the laws against women, discrimination, et cetera, et cetera. You would think as we progressed with the society that we should be doing better or feeling better. But I think this is really testing the mental state. And I think the mental state of America is what we miss. And you see, to be threatening like this, to be threatening at that level, what is going on in the heads of the people, of folks? And then when you juxtapose that to the number of mass shootings.
Right. Good point. Excellent point.
There's something connected there. Like, it is so, they say that when Columbine happened, it was such a shocker because that was still a fairly new thing. And
right.
And I think Dave Chappelle
That's a great point.
Dave Chappelle said, like, we live in a day and age where there's a Columbine every day. What's going on upstairs in our head? Like, what is not happening? What are we not addressing? What are we not fixing? And I think, lastly, as I leave this point for a second, and I think what is happening even further is, in the age of social media, a lot of these wrongdoings that exist now from our government officials existed then too, But we're now able to research. We don't have to wait for the news. We can figure it out. And I think people are frustrated.
And I got to take another quick pause, but to add to that, and I'm so happy, brother, that you brought that point up, because I think that is completely in agreement with where we are, where we're seeing 37-year-old men wilding out, posting threats, going on social media, sending letters, looking to do harm. It permeates down to the children, to teenagers, right? So it's so interesting, because when we talk about guns in this country, when we talk about violence in this country, we act as if you can separate. Oh, no, we don't have a gun problem. We have a gun handling problem, or we don't have a violence problem. It's just that we need to keep the same level of violence, but at the same time I would try to equalize it out with doing more good or something. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold true. Here's the other part of it. The other part of it is that when you're in a space like this, where you have these threats happening every single day, then that just speaks volumes about justice is not being served to the American people. Somebody is being imbalanced. And the worst thing that you can do, Sinead, and I think that this country, we need some real serious healing when it comes to this, is that we do not take the time to reflect, to grieve, and to find a pathway to heal when an injustice has been done against any group of people. And guess what? When you don't take that time, it's just like any individual, when you lose a loved one or when you go through a traumatic experience in your life and you don't take the time to reflect, to grieve, to heal from that experience, what starts to happen? It gets to be like festering in your mind, your heart, your energy, your spirit. And guess what? Because it was never addressed, it comes out in a violent way, in a very destructive way. And it speaks volumes. Look, I got to take another quick pause when we come back from the other side. Folks, I want you to share your thoughts on this, crew. Post your comments. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. But what do you make of this, the rise of threats against political officials and its impact on democracy as we move forward and talking about a future for America? Is America's future bright when you have threats against political officials and dissatisfaction among the government on the rise? Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side of right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our
So
stuff.
please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my brother and contributor, Brother Sinedu Wakwa, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist, as we're talking about the rise of threats against public officials and its impact on democracy. And Brother Sinedu, this conversation is based on a CNN investigation that's showing that there has been an uptick, there's been a spike of threats, and that social and political scientists and scholars are very concerned about the state of our political discourse and what that political discourse may lead us toward. As we're talking about breakdowns of governments in other countries, democracy, just to remind everyone, is still seen as a quote unquote an experiment, Brother Sinedu. It's not seen as the end all be all. There are many iterations of what democracy can look like, but America champions this form of government as the best form of government over any other form, whether it's communism, socialism, any other form of government that we may see or that may exist in the rest of the world. But America is under a severe crisis because more and more of its citizens are becoming dissatisfied in one way or another, right? And I was always taught, Brother Sinedu, that 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. But when you do get dissatisfied to the high levels that we're starting to see, I can always, and I think a lot of social scientists, they can see this as well, revolution is on the horizon, bro. And the revolution may not be televised, it might be on social media, but for some, it's going to be a violent conflict. So this is very fascinating. I want to share something again. Here's another piece of this report from CNN that I want to share with y'all and get you more of your take. Let's go to quote 2, please, Lise. They said, though the threatscape to members of Congress and other public servants appear to have cooled in 2022, this year has been several flare-ups that could prove a harbinger. They include a recent burst of threats targeting some GOP holdouts in the failed effort to award far-right Representative Jim Jordan the House speakership, another surrounding Trump's indictment, and yet another targeting progressive Representative Ilhan Omar, who has been historically critical of Israel's treatment of Palestinians following the outbreak of the war between Hamas and Israel. According to the director of the International Center for the Study of Violent Extremism, Ms. Ann Speckhard, she said these are perhaps the most dangerous hate crimes, referring to threats against public officials and election workers. They're really scary because they can take down a democracy. And let me just add one more piece to this as we're looking at it. CNN said that in 2021, a peak year for the activity. This is something else. We can just drop that quote for a minute. I just want to get this from the article. Thank you. In 2021, a peak year for the activity of this rising threats. More than 9,600 direct threats and concerning statements were leveled against members of Congress, according to the Capitol Police. Another 4,500 plus that year were hurled at judges, attorneys, jurors, and others who are protected by the U.S. Marshal Service. Everybody is feeling the dissatisfaction through all levels of government and all form of political engagement and participation. This is very serious and concerning, Brother Sinedu. I'm sorry, I just wanted to put that information out there. Talk to me, brother. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's very disheartening. And when you think about our experiment, the greatest thing about our experiment that we love to tout to communist nations or dictatorships is that we have the right to protest. That is an American thing. That's an American staple. What is happening to me, or what is happening to us, is I think the people are starting to realize that the protests aren't working. And I think people are taking matters into their own hands in the sense of, trying to threaten people, because people peacefully, think about it, you could be peacefully protesting an unarmed black man getting shot in one city, and then that night in another city, another unarmed person is getting shot.
Come on.
And I think what's happening, and I think it's good, I think people are questioning the democracy, how it works, if it's been working, does it need to be changed? And I think that's a good thing. I think as you get older, you question, you get wiser. I don't think that this threat or from being threatening is the way to go, but I think if we don't look at it as a sense of fear, but look at it as a resounding orchestra of what the environs, what the people are saying, I will always, there will be no threat if people had jobs, good paying jobs.
Right.
There will be no threats if prices for goods and services were at a stable amount. Because what I also find interesting is as people are continuing to try to live their lives, because of the unstable economy, it's more and more debt. Like when you're looking at, again, and I'm going back now to the mental state, when you're looking at the mental state of these people who are doing, for instance, these mass shootings, are we starting to notice that more and more, these are not just troubled people, these are young professionals or professionals. It's now not like, you don't need to be quote unquote crazy or insane. These are everyday average people that are
good point. Excellent point, bro.
Problems.
And that's an excellent point, because a lot of these threats, some of these threats, just like we see on January the 6th, when you see that level of dissatisfaction, but now that we have, there's been so much identification of who was present on the mall that day. You're talking about doctors, you're talking about lawyers, you're talking about people who have served in the armed forces. Like some of these threats, one guy said, I'm a veteran sniper, and unless you change your ways, I got my scope pointed in your direction. What is happening? What is happening? Another person, one of the other threats that CNN highlight, he said, you and the Republican Party should be proud that you're pushing me to become a domestic terrorist. What you see what I'm saying? Like, this ain't small time stuff, man. And here's the thing. This is probably, I'm gonna say it like this, yo. I'm gonna keep it 1,000 here. We're probably seeing more dissatisfaction from white people than black people. Because you know why? Because black folks, we have been conditioned that we could be mad as hell, but we know that there are some boundaries that we don't want to cross. And that has been ingrained in our heads since we were babies. You can shoot up the hood all day, but you better not go into that the affluent white neighborhood, up the street. Boy, don't cross that line. And guess what? It's ingrained in us. You see what I'm saying? Like, we don't even have to have police presence in some cases, because we already know what the boundaries are and the boundaries that we're willing to cross and not cross. See, that's the type of situation that we're finding ourselves in. But now this thing has gotten so bad. And here's the thing, as you talk about this, bro, the regular people have been disappointed when you have been told all of your life that you can achieve a certain financial mobility, social status, if you just work hard, if you just apply yourself, if you pull up your bootstraps, all of these mantras that we're taught from the times we're children all the way up until adulthood. And guess what? And none of that works. You're in suffering, you're in poverty, your educational experience has been subpar and doesn't get you as far as you want it to go. You're not being respected. You serve in our military. You're praised on Sunday mornings at the football game, and you're hated on Monday afternoon at the VA hospital. You see what I'm saying? Like this is a reality facing a lot of people in this country. Let me go to the crew because folks are checking in. Let me see this. Coretta, my sister, you said perhaps we have a Justice and Policing Act if we return to the streets en masse when Tim Scott tanked the bill. But no, we let up on the pressure. That's an opportunity to bring some sort of peace of mind to the people, some piece of legislation to give us some peace of mind. But because you playing politics, as that one threat said, you and the Republicans, y'all are forcing me to become a domestic terrorist. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let me see who else you said. Let me see who else we got here. Frankie, you said we are in a republic. Okay. And what does that mean, sir? What does that mean, Frankie? Talk to me. We are in a republic. Sean Ryan, you asked the question, how are these threats carried through? Some of them are carried through, but a lot of this stuff is just chatter, whether it's emails or letters and things. And the FBI and folks that are tapped in the intelligence community, they tuned in. The big thing, as CNN investigates showing, is, Brother Sinedu, is that a lot of these states and even the feds are having problems prosecuting those individuals who are saying these threats, because there was a Supreme Court decision that happened this summer in favor of a Colorado man who argued that his harassing messages to a woman on Facebook, including the phrase, "die, don't need you," weren't intended as threats and should be protected speech. That 7-2 decision, with Justices Clarence Thomas and Amy Coney Barrett dissenting, reversed the lower court's ruling based on a less rigorous prosecution standard. And this is from the CNN report, which maintained that a threat crosses the line if it puts a quote unquote a reasonable person in distress. They just had to vote on something like this year. Talk to me, brother. Talk to me.
I think the veil, there's so many veils that are being unveiled. I feel like, America, the country that we all love and hate at the same time, because we have the freedom to do that. I feel like people are starting to realize that the smell of good cooked food does not actually solve hunger.
Cool. Come on.
The distractions are not working anymore. And I think that the issue that I have with our wonderful country is, rather than solve a lot of issues, we make a distraction for that. And then it's just like a lie. It compounds interest. And I feel like it's gotten so big that, look at what's going on with Israel and Palestine. Look at how our government, usually in these situations, our government will just side with Israel, and it is what it is, and we all dealt with it. But look at 2023. Look at how our president is in a very, very, very difficult situation, because those compounded, way before him, those compounded things that we've been doing, they're not working anymore.
Yeah.
And like they tell us about credit cards, you get one credit card to pay off another credit, you'll just be in a loop, and they're all collecting interest. I think what I believe needs to happen and what I believe needs to be done is that, and y'all gonna call her crazy, Marianne Williamson was right. The reason why what she said is crazy is because it is so out of the zeitgeist of America to check itself. We need a spiritual reckoning. It's beyond it, because at this point, I don't think any of us recognize ourselves now. And then what happens is, I was watching Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, the other day. I think this is very important. This is a Black woman, right? Who is basically the spokesperson of the president. They were asking her questions, and she was making her stances for the president. And I thought to myself, this is just one example, is she the first Black woman LGBT? You think she's going to be the person that, quote unquote, stands up? No. And that's another problem. When the disenfranchised finally make it to the position of power, they're the first. And they don't want to fuck it up for the whole group. So in turn, sometimes they end up doing what the people will call nothing. because they can't. These are a lot of things that we have to contest with as a people. It's just the game of democracy in this country. It is just so buoyant, but it's safe at the same time.
And as we close it out, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the sentiment, Kathleen Davis, you expressed the same thing. You said, I guess I would be mad too if I believed that bullshit of the American dreams. That's actually a nightmare. That's it. Mm-hmm. We all have been feeding from that pot, baby. Like, eat. You know what I'm saying? The American dream, American dream, American dream. And we eat it, and when you grow up, and this is why we gotta have more of these conversations, because when you grow up, and when you have, for those of us who have small children, teenage children, we have little human beings inside of our homes, right? And we gotta present to them a world that they're gonna get into, that's going to be a much different world than what we experienced when we were their age. Are we driving home this idea of the American dream? You can get that house, you can get that white picket fence, you just got to get that good, go to school, get yourself a great education, and you got a great opportunity. You'll be able to support yourself and your family in the job market. We can't even really have that anymore. We can't even really lie. That's becoming, not to say it doesn't happen like that anymore, but it's becoming a fading thing. It's not the same. It's not the same. We can't tell our children, and this is why this piece around this threats and to democracy, because the sad part is, and the frightening part of it is, we can't assure to ourselves, nor can we assure to our children, that everything is going to be all right, that the government got it, because we don't know. Because democracy is being tested each and every day in this country because of dissatisfaction of the people. I got to stop it right there. My brother Sinead Wakofor, I truly love and appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much. God willing, we'll reconnect next week. But thank you once again, brother, for being so good for the culture.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation on the other side. I have a very special guest that's going to be joining me to talk about philanthropy, implicit bias, and Black media. My sister, Dana Amahir, who's the founder and editor of the Afro LA News. She's going to give us some things that they're working on, more importantly, and how do we make sure that we're getting credible content? How do we make sure we're getting good news from this day and time? So we're going to have that conversation. Of course, we want to hear from you. So stay with us. That's going to be happening on the second half of the show here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we are having some fantastic discussions about the state of affairs, political affairs in this country. We want to shift gears now because I do want to have a conversation about implicit bias and have a conversation about philanthropy and, more importantly, the role of Black media, as there has been a number of discussions about the importance, the value, the significance of Black media. So, folks, we want you to join us in the conversation right now. We're streaming on a number of different platforms. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And, of course, we ask for your financial donations, and that will truly, truly be appreciated. We're also streaming on Amazon News, on Fire TV. So make sure you do your due diligence and check us out there. We're also on Amazon Prime Video, where you can find us there on the Prime Video app, Live TV, the news, and or under Amazon.com, under Prime Video, the news, Live TV, the news. And then we're on Freevee, on that great network there. You can find us there on News and Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network. Let me bring in my next very special guest. This is a sister that's deciding to take all that we have talked about and try to do something with it, as she is a journalist, an esteemed journalist. She's an award-winning journalist, but she's also taken it to the next level, as she has now serves as the founder and editor of Afro LA News, that great news agency that is rooted in Los Angeles. And I'm so happy to have her joining me on the show today, Miss Dana Ahmed, here to talk to us about philanthropy, implicit bias, and Black media. Dana, good afternoon. How are you feeling?
Hi, good afternoon. It's really great to be on with you. Feeling pretty good for Thursday.
Well, that's absolutely. And for the sake of transparency, folks, this is one of the many, I would say, one of the great places I have had the great opportunity to do some great work with Dana and talking about some of these issues. But I thought it would only be right to bring Afro LA News into the mix, because this is a Black news agency that's doing its work to try to tell the stories of Black Angelenos, and specifically, while keeping an eye on what's going on around the country. And I think that's the important part. Let's talk first and foremost, Dana, about what we're seeing. First, talk to us a little bit about Afro LA News. What inspired you to want to start this platform?
So the idea for Afro LA came about in November 2021. I was out with another journalist who had recently quit their job. I quit in April 2021 to become an independent journalist. And we just started listing off all the things that we would do if we were in charge, the things that rubbed us the wrong way, the things that we thought were toxic and could be fixed within news culture, in newsrooms, and within how we cover different issues for our communities. So Afro LA officially launched last April with our first website, and this past February we launched with our new permanent website. We're nonprofit, nonpartisan digital news. We're solutions focused, we're data driven, and community centered journalism for LA, told through the lens of the Black community. We emphasize how things might disparately impact LA's most vulnerable communities, like the unhoused, which is a huge problem here, and also communities of color.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that you are ushering in a different approach, an alternative approach to storytelling and to, making the news, which is this idea of solutions journalism. What is this? This is very, I think for those of us who may not be familiar with that terminology, that may sound somewhat good, but we're like, wait a minute, what exactly is it?
So some of the reactions I get when I say solutions journalism is like, oh, you're only going to solve the world's problems with news? Like, no.
Right.
Absolutely not. They think it's, soft and fluffy, and, we're trying to, whitewash or rose-colored glasses through to give people news, and that's not it at all. So what it really is contextualizing um, any issue that we are covering, and it's writing about the responses to problems. It's about more than just reiterating the litany of problems that we know we have in our communities, within our schools, within our neighborhoods. It's about not just telling people what's wrong. It's about trying to use insight and context and nuance to talk about responses to these problems, not just in the community that you're in, but maybe how they're doing it in someplace else. Maybe they're doing a really great job over in Phoenix, where there's something awesome happening in New York. Or maybe you can learn from a response that's happening in Atlanta, where things didn't go so well. What can we glean from that to figure out what's going on in our own backyard? So for me, solutions journalism, it shouldn't just be like a niche, which it kind of is right now. It's not exactly across the board. It should really be this North Star. It's what journalism really should be in the first place.
So it's highlighting what people are doing in response to social ills.
Exactly. And it's providing that context from a 10,000-foot view, but also on at a more granular level, so that you've widened the lens into seeing multiple sides and multiple perspectives of a story. So it's not just you have to have followed this particular news item for weeks at a time to understand what's going on. Sometimes that's why people get so frustrated with news, because if you haven't followed it from the beginning, you're lost if you pick up an article, as opposed to something that's solutions journalism driven. You can pick up anywhere and still feel like you walk away with the context and the insight into the overall situation. So you don't feel like you only know, well, what happened today. You understand, well, the entire situation as it's unfolded over maybe days or weeks or even months.
And why is that important for Black media in particular? And here's why I'm asking this, and I know you know the answer, so I mean, that's not even a thing. But here's why, for the sake of our watchers and our audience members. To me, Black news has become watered down, which is why the structure of this show is really rooted in the idea that I, as the host, don't have all the answers. I'm a moderator and a facilitator of the conversations, right? So we bring in all these voices to try to add their part, their piece to these larger problems. But it still seems like when you talk about Black news or Black media, it becomes this other thing. It's very entertainment driven. It's very sports driven. It's very like surface level stuff, right? And then if it's not surface level stuff, it's like heavy racial issues, right? Stuff that it's like two different spectrums, Dana. Either you get excited with the sports and entertainment, or you get mad as hell because of the racism.
Oh yeah,
And,
I mean,
it's hard to figure out, like, yo, can I just read news that's related to my community where I'm not super excited or just mad as hell at the world? Can I just read something balanced here? Can I read something to empower me and not just play on my emotions?
yeah, so that's one of the things behind the ethos for Afro-LA in the first place. So from my perspective, mainstream media treats the presence of Black bodies sometimes as just one amorphous entity. We're like one big monolithic group, even though we know that's not true in terms of heritage, origin story, what we look like in terms of appearance and skin coloration, beliefs and religion. I mean, we're not a monolithic group, so we shouldn't treat us like one. And it also shouldn't be an extractive experience. So it feels like we get covered in the news for the things that we give the rest of society, for sports, for entertainment, for beauty, for things like, you go on social media and it's like, well, I want to hear the latest song or see who's got good stats in sports today. I want to, learn more about soul food. It feels like it's almost touristy into our communities and our culture. And that's what I did not want to do. I wanted to celebrate this rich diversity of Blackness, all forms of Blackness in Los Angeles's communities. We have so many ethnic neighborhoods. We have so many of these little enclaves of people just living and experiencing and really into what it means to be Black here and just living their lives. The other thing that I feel like we don't see enough in Black news or mainstream media is just normalized narratives of what Black people are. Just regular people. You don't have to be this extraordinary, the model minority. You don't have to be the kid who's on the come up and gonna, go to the NBA out of a bad neighborhood. You don't have to talk about necessarily the valedictorian of the worst school in the city who got accepted to all the Ivy League colleges. We could just talk about, the kid who makes, moderately good grades, and they spend their time volunteering at a nursing home, and they've started like a mobile library for the seniors or something like that. It doesn't have to be something extraordinary that we've done. We can celebrate us just for being us.
A couple of points. You landed a couple of things on my spirit right now, Dana. You landed a couple of things on my spirit. One being that it's the touristy of Black culture. And if nothing else, I feel like Black people, Blackness in this day and time, the way it's presented both in news and in other mediums, right? Blackness is this kind of trendy sideshow attraction, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us have quote unquote bought into that as a form of power and acceptance, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm Black. Like, you know what I mean? We wear it on our sleeve, we wear the shirts. I'm Black.
Yes.
So
You
that
gotta have
means
the
I'm the
merch.
life. Right. Like, I'm the life of the party. I'm Black. I have deep history. I'm Black. You know what I'm saying? I have something to say, and so it does feel a little bit weird. I think the other point that you're making, we got to take a quick pause. The other point that you're making about just the overall presentation of who we are, right? It's so much deeper. It's so much deeper. And Black excellence doesn't mean you have. And I put this on my social media one day, Dana, and people really thought it was a good idea. Black excellence. No, I just said it. I just said Black excellence doesn't mean that you're rich and wealthy and famous.
Preach.
Like we look at somebody and we whatever our entertainers and we be like Black excellence, and it's like the teacher's Black excellence, the community organizer Black excellence. Anytime somebody is doing good work on the behalf of Black people, wherever they are, whoever they are, whichever community they come from, Black excellence. We look at our Black immigrant brothers and sisters, and we, some of us got little issues and all of that stuff. But if they're doing good work, if they're adding to the change, a positive change, if they're adding to the positive elements of our culture, that's Black excellence. But I think we have been ingrained in that the only form of Black excellence is when you're famous, you're rich, when you have a lot of social media followings. But we're finding, even with this latest situation with Diddy, and this is why I'm going to have a whole conversation about Diddy. But one of the big things about his case is that he's been at the pinnacle of success. He was often attributed as being the model of Black excellence. But now that we're hearing all of these stories, it's showing that with all of the material things, with all of the accolades and the praises, it's something deep inside of the human being that still has yet to be cultivated to make them a good, decent human being. All right, I gotta take a quick pause, Dana, because we going in. We're gonna go in. Look, look, folks. I'm talking to Dana Emma here from Black Afro LA News. She is the founder and the editor of this fantastic news agency. We're talking about philanthropy, implicit bias, and Black media. On the other side, folks, we're going to talk about what's happening with this issue of teacher housing, something that Afro LA News has been focusing on. Also, we're going to talk about philanthropy. Let's talk about that. Matter of fact, the Open Society Foundation has given a crazy amount of money to Black folks that are doing work for youth and democracy. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we're going to have that conversation on the other side. Stay with us. Join us in the discussion on Roland Martin's YouTube page, and stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Dana Amahir, who is the founder and editor of Afro LA News. This is the news platform that Black Angelenos can count on to get the news straight up and down. No chaser. Solutions journalism at its best. And as you can see, folks, let's go back to the website very quickly. Thank you, Lise, for putting that up. The type of stories that they cover on Afro LA. This is a Black-owned media platform, folks. Another platform for our stories to be told the way they need to be told. You see that? Unapologetic, Black Los Angeles. Come on, Dana. You talking to you speaking to my soul. You speaking to my soul right now.
Right.
Speaking to my soul. So we're talking about these things. Let's first talk about this implicit bias and why this is important for us in the bigger context of telling our story. Why is this important from your vantage point that we identify when there is a bias and then moving forward on addressing that bias to not become an impediment for us down the road?
So the reason we wanted to dive into implicit bias and racial discrimination within charitable giving is because it has such an impact on those who are on the receiving end, those who are for whom charity is trying to is being given, and to fund programming, to fund solutions to help whatever cause is involved. So one of our latest stories, which will be published tomorrow, we looked at charitable giving specifically around homelessness. We know there is a homelessness and affordable housing crisis in Los Angeles, and we wanted to take a critical look at this intersection of race and philanthropy. One of the impetuses for this story was actually from the writer who reported this story. His name is Ethan Ward. He's been writing about people experiencing homelessness and the unhoused for a very long time. He and I wanted to really unpack whether you're white, whether you're black, how that affects who wants to give to you. He actually did a really nice series about a woman named Sarah Fay. Sarah is experiencing homelessness, not quite as the definition that we might think of. She wasn't on the street, but she's a white woman. She was educated, but she was living in a family member's garage, trying to look for a job, and wasn't finding success in that. And we looked at that and we're like, if someone like Sarah, who has a support system, who has resources, who has education, is having that much trouble, what hope is there for the folks who don't have all of those things, especially who are Black folks? So with that, we started wondering, well, a lot of people raise money for, your house burned down and you're trying to rebuild. You are currently unhoused and you're trying to find money for a motel, things like that through crowdfunding. So we started looking at GoFundMe. We wanted to look at causes for white housing versus Black housing. And what we found was really, really illuminating. First of all, GoFundMe doesn't keep that data. They don't track race as part of their platform. Understandably so in some form. In some ways, I understand. If you were able to tick a box and say whether you were Black, white, Latina, Asian, people, because of who we are as people, it's like, well, I want to filter out all the Black causes. I want to filter out all the Asian causes. I only want to support white people. I mean, unfortunately, that's sometimes the world we live in. So I understand it from that perspective. But the fact that they weren't able to say that they collected that data even internally, that was a little bit telling. One of the things that Ethan and I undertook as part of this story was really trying to unpack this connection between race and philanthropy. And one of the examples that he brought up was, you recall back in 2017, this woman, Caitlin McClure, and her boyfriend, Mark D'Amico, they launched a GoFundMe campaign called Pay It Forward. Caitlin claimed that a homeless man, she's on her way home from Philadelphia on I-95, her car runs out of gas, and an unhoused veteran gives her his last $20. And in a matter of weeks, they were able to raise $400,000 for this unhoused vet, supposedly. And it turned out the whole thing was a scam. The whole thing was a scam. And it came to light when the unhoused vet came forward and basically said, well, I didn't get my cut. I didn't get my cut out of this scam. And then the whole thing kind of disintegrated from there. And one of the things we're able to unpack in this story is, well, it was picked up by national media. The goal was really to raise $10,000, and they raised $400,000 from 14,000 people.
Wow.
The question that we really started to ask ourselves is, how much of this had to do with the fact that all the people involved were white? How many times do we drive past people who are Black veterans, holding the same sign or saying, they need help, they need shelter, that sort of thing? I don't think anybody deserves to be unhoused. I don't think that there should be a metric of race necessarily involved in who deserves services, but there definitely, we find there is an element of race in how we fund programming, how we fund solutions toward trying to get people off the streets. And that's one thing that we really go into in this story. And I feel like it's work to be proud of, because it's unlike anything that we've seen out there. We really wanted to help make those connections for people, especially, it's a holiday season. It's a time of charitable giving. We really wanted to go into that.
Do you, and I agree with you 100%. Do you feel like the conversation, the way that we're having conversations about homelessness and unhoused needs to change? Because
Absolutely.
And when I'm thinking, and when I'm thinking about this approach of solution journalism, it's like taking the lens and shifting it, a little bit, because I feel like homelessness, especially here, of course, in Los Angeles, it's like this three-headed monster that no one wants to really, that no one can really defeat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you are an Angelino, when you walk through the streets of LA, and I'm talking about any part of LA, you're going to be confronted with homelessness.
Absolutely. It's undeniable.
It's undeniable. Like, you can go to Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, you can go to Inglewood, you can go to East LA, you can go to Central LA. Like, you're going to be confronted with homelessness. And I feel like it's become a very political conversation,
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, can it become more of a human rights conversation, right? Like at the end of the day, every single human being deserves to have a place to call home, whether it's a studio apartment or whether it's a mansion. It doesn't matter. It's just that that's a human right. That's not a privilege. That's a human right. So how do we have that conversation in a different way?
I think reframing that conversation is really, really the key. So you're actually speaking to part of some other coverage that we had a while back. We wanted to think about, well, we have this housing crisis. What are some creative solutions that we could harness in order to try and solve this? So hypothetically, if we had like Airbnb for folks who are experiencing homelessness, what would that look like? And one of the things that was the basis of that particular story is that we kind of already have housing models like that in place. There are programs to help formerly incarcerated people who are re-entering society. It pairs them up with a homeowner and gets them a room to rent, so that they are able to, get back into the workforce, get back into the swing of living outside prison walls. And if we can harness that housing model to try and address homelessness and getting people the housing that they need and that they deserve, it's like, what's the disconnect? Why can't we do this? And again, race and stigma came into play. It's like, well, I don't know if I want that formerly incarcerated person in my house. I don't know if I want that homeless person in my house. But when we really started to talk to people, we talked to someone who does Airbnb as a pretty substantial piece of her monthly income. We asked her, would you have someone in your home like this? Would you welcome someone who is experiencing homelessness? And she's like, I think I would. I mean, there are a couple of concerns that I think I would definitely want to address. But if LA offered me a stipend to try and work with them and house this person, I would. And it's that kind of out of the box thinking that I think is going to propel us forward in these conversations.
Absolutely. I got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, Dana, I want to get your take on more deeper on this philanthropy piece that you and Afro LA News has been investigating. Also, get your take on the latest coming from the Open Society Foundation and their investment into Black excellence. But let me share with you just a couple of the crew members' notes as we're having this conversation. Corinna, you said, Farajii, I love this conversation and that you have the Afro LA News editor on. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Corinna, for checking in. Sharon Marie said, Dana, Emma here. Beautiful human being. There you go.
Aww.
There you go. Little something, love. You get into here. There we go. But you're doing some fantastic work, and I think that it needs to be praised. But the best part about the work you're doing is the intention behind it and how you're doing it, the approach. Where we're looking at solutions. We're looking at how do we push the needle forward. And I think that can be the I'm trying to think of the best word, Dana. That could be the mission of Black media today. For Black media today, it's not enough to just talk about what everyone else is talking about.
Exactly.
Because we're in a very unique relationship when it comes to the powers that be in this country. So our media has to be unique and different. You know what I'm saying? Like, our media can't be the same way that white media is.
Well, it can't be because we didn't start the same. Black media and Black newspapers kind of came out of this quest for liberation out of the civil rights movement and even earlier. It was our way of communicating with our community on our terms. And I feel like we have to pick up that mission and push it forward with a little bit more fervor in our current landscape.
And it has to give us hope.
It does. It can't just.
It has to give us hope.
Yeah, it can't show all the things that are beating us down all the time.
All the time, Dana. We talking about the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? We got to give our people something to hold on to because this thing is rough. So I appreciate that. Look, we got to take another quick pause when we come forward. More with Dana, more with you folks. I'm gonna share more of your comments as we continue the conversation. On the other side, let's talk about philanthropy and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the conversation. I've been joined by Miss Dana Amahir. Dana serves as the founder and editor of Afro LA News, which is a local Los Angeles news platform where they not just talk about the issues, but they provide some insights on how we can get to a better place. More solutions journalism is the approach that Afro LA News takes. And so we're talking about philanthropy, we're talking about implicit bias, and of course, we're talking about the value and the importance of Black media. And Dana, again, we thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon to share with us these stories. Now, you're talking about philanthropy, and I just saw it this morning on the Griot, where they talked about how the Open Society Foundation commits $50 million to women and youth groups work on democracy. Of course, the Open Society is the group founded by billionaire George Soros, who has already committed $220 million to organizations led by Black people who fight for racial justice. Now, according to the son of Mr. Soros, Alex Soros, chair of the Open Society Foundation, he said advocacy from women and younger generation is essential to stopping the advancement of authoritarianism. He also talks about the early stages of the Trump administration, philanthropic support for organizations seeking to protect and defend progressive policy wins and to counter democratic suppression efforts surge. but groups dedicated to the civic engagement of women and young people did not see similar increases in levels of support. So they're going to give $50 million. The new funding will be in addition to prior commitment it's made to this U.S. based organizations. Like 220 million for Black-led organizations working for racial justice, 100 million to Latino organizations to support civic engagement and immigrant rights, and 52.6 million for organizations that work in indigenous and Asian communities. What's your take on this? What's your take of this? And look, I came out of the nonprofit sector in Baltimore. And you know what we call that in Baltimore? The nonprofit industrial complex.
Having spent some time in Baltimore, I understand where you're coming from.
The nonprofit industrial complex, right? For those who may not be familiar, when we talk about jail, we call that, the criminal justice industrial complex. But they call it that way because as much as it sounds just like going to prison, prison's supposed to be about reform and change, that some people feel like the nonprofit world keeps us in a place where we're always begging. And I'm just saying, I'm just sharing with you some of the sentiments. And I'm talking about from Black activists, Black organizers, and advocates who feel like, you know what, this nonprofit thing is always about somebody having, it's an uneven power dynamic where you do have a wealthy white investor who is helping Black people in some way, shape, or form. Now, other people are saying, hell, this is a form of reparations. So if the man wants to give up $50 million to help us, here's the address to send the check.
Nah, I've got.
So
what's
your take on that? What's your take on that? How do you see this?
So I have thoughts. I have thoughts, Farajii.
Go and share. Talk to me.
So my message to all of those folks, including the group that Press Forward, which has said that they will dedicate $500 million to news organizations, to nonprofit news organizations in the coming years from philanthropic and financial and foundation support. I have the same message for Press Forward as I do for the Soros Group. Put your money where your mouth is, because we have been saying so long that there is a problem. We saw an influx in funding and support in, just positivity around communities of color, especially the Black community, following the murder of George Floyd. But that bubble has burst for us. That funding is down from a rush to a trickle. It is, it's going away. I mean, just an October report that was in TechCrunch reconfirmed that Black founders, we raised less than 1% of all the capital allocated to US startups in Q3. Less than 1%. So that's about $39 million out of almost 30 billion with a B dollars. And what's worse is it's worse for women. As a Black-led, woman-led organization, I am at the very, very bottom rung for venture capital, and it seems like for philanthropic giving as well. It's hard because it feels like you have to prove yourself in order to be taken seriously. You not only have to prove that you are worthy of investment, but you have to prove, that this investment is going to pan out. Whereas I've seen some of my white counterparts, they put forward a business plan that looks like you could have Googled it. And I'm like, I've got a 3-year plan. I've got all my stuff in order. I've got my legal, I've got my accounting, but it feels like it's still not enough. You're caught in this cycle as a nonprofit, especially a news nonprofit, of you need money to get money. And if you don't know anybody, you don't get anywhere. And it feels like if your cause, your issue, your group isn't picked up as, by someone in the mainstream, by somebody who's willing to give you or able to give you visibility. So some sort of, maybe you write an op-ed for one of the major mainstream papers like the Times or the Post. Maybe you are lifted up by one of the major philanthropic organizations. If you don't have that visibility, you're not able necessarily to get to that threshold, or at least not as quickly. I can't say that I have made it to that threshold. We're a nonprofit.
Right,
So
right. Nonprofit. It's your favorite nonprofit.
Yeah. Don't you know
But
it?
and I got to take another pause. But the thing is, do we need to go back to that conversation about who should support Black platforms?
Hmm.
Even of course, on here, Black Star Network. The business part of our business model is to get donor support from people who watch, people who really understand the significance, who really get the idea of a Black-owned media platform in the digital space, right? So we're like brothers and sisters. We're right there
We are
with you.
kindred
We're
spirits
right.
right
We are
here.
kindred spirits. We're right here from Black Star Network to Afro LA News, and I'm sure there are other spaces. But people are saying like, hey, if we're talking about this level of philanthropy, then there's going to be some sense of control. There's going to be some
Hmm.
sense of power that you have to kind of give yourself, kind of give up. Because if somebody's giving you a whole bunch of money, I'll never forget, and didn't happen, but I never forget when Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos,
Yes.
when I think it was about 2 years ago, Dana, was it about 2 years ago? She just went on this
Oh
whole
yeah,
like
yeah. Giving spree.
thing, this
Yeah, it's
giving
great.
spree,
It
right?
was great. It's great.
It was great, like, and I mean great, because
Yeah.
HBCUs got money, businesses got money, a lot of people got money. The thing that she recognized, and I have to applaud her for, that she said, with my philanthropy, you don't have to tell me what you're using the money for.
Hmm. Unrestricted
It's
funds.
no strings attached. You can use it to get new water bottles or something. Whatever you need it for is what you need it for. I'm just giving you the money unrestricted. Unrestricted. And so, does that need to be the case as we go forward to have the relationship we need to have in the philanthropic space? That Black folks need to have unrestricted money. And how does the play?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of
All
the
right.
biggest struggles that I have as a media founder is that everybody wants to give us money in terms of a project grant. It's like, we want to do a project, we want to coach you, we want to mentor you. And I'm at a point in my career, I've been hired to be some of these coaches and mentors, and I'm looking back at them and I'm like, you want me to apply into your program that you were going to hire me to teach into? Why don't you just give me the money? But it's like, no, we want to, you have to have a plan, you have to have a project. And I'm just like, well, why? Why do you have to have that level of control over how the money is used? Why does it have to be for this one thing that you oversee? Why can you not trust me and
Yeah.
trust my decision that I'm going to put it toward what is most beneficial for my organization and for my community? Why can I not be trusted to know what's going to work for us? I'm the one in the trenches. I'm the one that's here. So why do I need your oversight in order to tell me what's best for me and what's best for my community?
There it is. There it is. I got to take a quick pause when we come forward. Let's get some final thoughts from Dana and, of course, from you. Stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
Folks, welcome back to the show. Been checking in with my sister Dana from Afro LA News. And Dana, there it is. You saw that little, hey, look, you got to speak truth to power. We got to have control over our own narrative. We got to be able to tell our stories without the implicit bias that we often see. We have to do things differently. And we got a final few moments, and I want to give you an opportunity because folks are asking, what can we do to help? How can we move forward? How can we support Afro LA News? Talk to us, Dana.
Well, the biggest way right now is we are in a news match campaign through the Institute for Nonprofit News through December 31st. Every donation up to $1,000 is doubled for us. Our goal is to raise $10,000, and we're not quite there yet. If you go to afrolanews.org/donate, you can make a tax-deductible contribution. Very easy. We take PayPal. We take your credit card. We take your debit card. I believe we also take Venmo now. But we would love for you to support our cause, even if it is just a one-time donation. You can also become a member. We are a membership sustained organization. So if your monthly contribution goes directly into the newsroom, there's not crazy overhead because we're remote. It's going directly into work that is going to impact our community. And one of our most recent initiatives is called Buy Black LA. We started a Black business directory to emphasize the fact that our culture, our community here, we are more than food. We are more than getting your hair done. We have dry cleaners and auto mechanics and jewelry stores and everything under the sun. We wanted to support our local community by being able to lift them up and to show that this is us. We are here. We're not going away. And we are a force to be reckoned with, just like Afro LA. So if you want to support Afro LA, make a one-time donation or become a monthly recurring donor. If you're in LA and you're a small business, we welcome you to join Buy Black LA. So that's buyBlackLA.org.
There it is right there. See, this is why we got to have the network, Dana. This is why Black news agencies support one another. Because too many times, I think the spirit of competition gets in the way of us building the spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood in this process, right? Like we only have a handful of Black news agencies across the country.
Yes.
Some of them are bigger and a little bit further along than others, especially in this digital space. Yes. And one of my crew members brought it up, looking at when we telling our stories, and I wanted to get your take on it very quickly, but talking about the rise of podcasts. There are a lot of Black podcasts out there. Where do they fit in this whole ecosystem from your vantage point? How can they work? Because I think podcasts, a lot of people just kind of do like this, it's the very like light gossipy stuff to the very heavy to the, but for Black podcasts, where does the Black podcaster fit in this landscape of Black media?
I think we have a huge opportunity. And I say that from the perspective of, anybody can have a podcast today. Two guys with a mic in a garage is a podcast, for better or for worse. And I mean, we've got all the true crime, we've got the salacious gossip and all that. What I think we have an opportunity to do is real talk and pass the noise. And to that end, Afro LA, we started a podcast. It actually launched yesterday. It's called I Can See That. It's a solutions journalism podcast. It's two people in conversation with each other who have different views on the same subject. And it's just them trying to learn and understand where the other person's coming from. Like, I can see where you're coming from. I can see your point of view. When we start to see each other, we can empathize and relate with each other. We stop infighting. We stop trying to compete with each other and to take over each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that answer because I think a lot of podcasters are out there. And I always tell people, Dana, this ain't easy. You think you can jump in front of the mic and you're like, I can just go on. This ain't easy. This is real work, folks. This is real work, especially if you really want to take people's consciousness up a couple of degrees. You know what I'm saying? You got to approach this. This is, as much as it's the talking, it's a craft and there's a science to it, right? Just the same way we look at journalism. Like journalism has certain standards and ethics that it has to adhere to. Same thing with being in front of the camera or behind that mic. You got to be, you got to have those ethics. You got to have those standards. Because this is not about the person. This is about the people. Absolutely. It's not about one person. It's about all of us as a people. So I truly appreciate you. Again, folks, Afro LA News, great news platform for the city of Los Angeles and around the surrounding areas, giving us the stories that about Black Angelenos that you probably never even thought about. Let me just give you a context very quickly as we wrap up. There are 99 communities in Los Angeles. Had to look that one up. I was like, what?
In Los Angeles City, in the county,
Los
there's
Angeles.
more.
Woo!
We have 200 in the county. I know because I map stuff for work. Yeah.
99 in the great city of Los Angeles, 200 in LA County. We got some stories to tell, folks. We got some stories to tell. My sister Dana, thank you so much for the great work you're doing. And more importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture. Absolutely. Thank you. Folks, make sure y'all check out AfroLAnews.org. All right, folks. Before we wrap up today, I wanted just to throw this out there. You may have followed me on social media, but tonight I want you to join us as we're going to have a fire conversation. Yours truly has been invited to be on Dr. Steve Perry's podcast, No Dumb Questions. Yes, folks, there it is. So I'm going to be chopping it up with the good doctor, the big brother, as we talk about the issues and, of course, the culture. So make sure y'all tune into that. You can follow me on my social media to get all of the details. But I can't wait to have the conversation with my brother about all of the stuff that's happening within Black America. And y'all know, I had Dr. Steve Perry as part of our Black Men's Summit. I had to bring my brother on because he's always got something deep to say about education and so much more. So make sure y'all check out that podcast tonight called No Dumb Questions with Dr. Steve Perry. And I can't wait to be on there this evening. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Thank each and every one of you. Man, I love y'all, man. I love the crew. I love the crew. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. There we go. Big shout out to my production team, always making it possible. I got Chris, I got Lisa, I got my man King Keenan, Joel and Shannon and Maddie. Y'all, man, fantastic. Yeah. Stay tuned. Up next, of course, is Rolling Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure y'all do your due diligence and do something for yourself. Once you give something for Black Star Network, go to our website today, download the app, follow us on social media, and again, your financial donations makes a world of difference. Can we welcome to the Bring the Funk fan club at a level 1, Reggie 254. Reggie 254. There we go. Reggie, thank you so much for your donation, and welcome to the Bring the Funk fan club. Welcome to the Culture Crew, and I hope that you enjoyed the conversations that we had today and that inspired you to give something. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, folks, got to get out of here. But as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow. Got my sister Corinna Denise coming in. I'm coming on tomorrow, so I can't wait to talk to her about the issues. But we'll be back here tomorrow, God willing, right here on The Culture, here, exclusively here, only here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.